Well, I wanted to take a closer look at the greeter footage that Oddworld Inhabitants released, so I'm just going slowly through it. The first shot of the greeter is a really good one. I like how clear this is. I don't know where it is though. Continues into the second shot. It might be, I don't think it's Necrom, but it might be though, but it's not the right blue in the background, but it might just be this particular area. I'm thinking it might be Soulstorm Brewery, but I'm not sure. Yeah, it could be, I'm not sure. The next shot definitely looks like Necrom though to me. It looks just like, you know, the opening part of the Abe's Exoddus. I really like this shot, how it's instantly recognisable, you know, the stone in the background, the blue, the dark blue tones, it's just really good. Were the creators in Necrom in Abe's Exoddus? I can't remember, I think they were. Or maybe that was just a mod that I saw. It's like a mod called Greeter Hell or something, where someone literally just replaced every slig with greeters or something. The next shot is back in that sort of, I don't know, I'm going to call it Soulstorm Brew. It might not be, I'm not entirely certain, but the tones just sort of remind me of a part of it. The thing that I noticed here is that, well, firstly, okay, the way the greeter zaps Abe, he sort of does this Looney Tunes sort of, you know, what's that one that is trying to eat the Roadrunner? You know, when they like get hit with a hammer or something, they sort of do the, you know, kind of thing, which is weird, and then very very comical, and then he just explodes, which is sort of similar to the bad ending of Abe's Exoddus, I guess you could argue. But what I did notice is that that's pretty, in some ways, it's a bit like a similar way to how they die in the old games. I guess it isn't really, but if you look at Abe, when he gets zapped in the old games, he sort of does this pose, but I think that's just his falling down pose, and just sort of disintegrates, which is really interesting. It's not an explosion like this new one is, so that's an interesting difference, if you like, to note, that the result of getting zapped by a greeter is different. Now you get a really good shot of the birds that dissipate from Abe, that explode from Abe when he dies, and they're really white, they're like doves or something. They look like doves, but yeah, they just look really white to me, which is interesting. And then the greeter just carries on chugging along. The next shot shows, you know, pretty standard stuff. I like the way the doors look the same like they did on the old games. Again, another thing that's recognisable, which I really like. But you know, you got a checkpoint, you got a button, you got a vending machine up there, looks like for Soulstorm Brew. Is that Soulstorm Brew? It looks like it, but if it is, I don't really like this new design of the Soulstorm Brew vending machine, because, I don't know, it's just really weird with like the neon and whatever. They have this sort of, ever since New and Tasty, they've had this sort of weird neon aesthetic to everything in Oddworld. Not everything, and they seem to have toned it down massively in Soulstorm, but it's still present, like with the Soulstorm Brewery vending machine right there. And I'm not a fan of it really. I really like the industrial, hardcore sort of, I don't know, steampunk feel, very commercial, not commercial, but like corporate, grounded feel that the old games had. So yeah, I'm not particularly a fan of the new Soulstorm Brewery vending machine design, assuming that's what it is. You got the Mudokons having hard hats. I wonder if they're dressed like that everywhere. I guess they are, which in Necrom it makes sense, right? Oh, and in that background there's like those road tanks were in the previous trailer. But as I was saying, the Mudokons, does it make sense them having hard hats in like Soulstorm Brewery, for example? What's the danger there? They're going to get a brew bottle thrown at them or something, you know? It's just sort of, like in Necrom, it's a mine, so there's rocks falling everywhere. It makes sense to have a hard hat. It makes sense for them to look like builders. But these are just like scrubbing the floor. So I don't get what the point of them having hard hats would be. Obviously it's a gameplay element. They take off the hard hats when Abe calls them. The next shot is one of my favourite shots. It's got the greeter chugging along, and he goes over a UXB, which has a different design from the old games. This one is, you know, the button at the top is really small, it's sort of thick at the bottom, and yeah, it's really interesting. It's red constantly. I guess that's just because it's such a short clip that you don't see it go green, but the greeter just goes right over it, isn't affected at all by it. So, you know, I mentioned about in my trailer analysis, you can clearly by Abe's inventory wheel, you can grab your XPs now and utilize them against your enemies, but apparently the greeter is an enemy that it will be completely useless against. So you put a UXP down, it just comes along, destroys it. I do wonder, is he doing that on purpose? Does he know you've put a UXP down and he's gone purposely to destroy it? Or have you just placed that down and then he's just happened to come along and, you know, blown it up? I'm guessing they did that for the clip, I guess. But yeah, it's an interesting question. Interesting here, I just noticed, I didn't notice this before. Ooh, this is very interesting. So, it appears to be, same area, I think? Like the Soulstorm Brewery. I keep saying, I shouldn't say that because I'm not 100% sure, but this, whatever area this is, that's been in most of the trailer. It might be Necrom, I don't know. The first shot actually shows. So in the corner you've got Tank 20. So what, you get to utilise tanks now? And like, they're like a thing, or is that could be a place sign, so like they're saying, oh look, here's tank number 20. I don't know, it could be. Or it could be saying there's 20 tanks. I don't think so. I think it might be a place sign because there's like exit underneath it. So that's quite interesting. There's vending machines at the bottom there. One of them looks like Soulstorm Brew, I think. But interestingly, the greaser is going the opposite way from Abe in this shot. But then very quickly, I guess it turns around. Yeah, if you have a look at its shadow, you can sort of see it turning around. And of course the laser. And maybe it's detected that Abe's put a fire there or something. So, or maybe it's just happened to turn around and then it's going towards fire. There's a checkpoint there by Abe, and then the greeter opens his mouth and shh, does a fire. It doesn't say anything when it does this, which is really interesting. So from what I gather, the mouth opening is like a gameplay element now, which is really interesting. I hadn't considered that before. But like, I was wondering, why doesn't the mouth sync with the voice anymore? And then I was thinking, well, maybe it's like a visual element for, like, you know, deaf people or something. So instead of utilising it as a visual aspect of the game, as an aesthetic aspect of the game, so like just making it look nice with the mouth movement, maybe it's like a visual element for the gameplay. Like maybe it signifies, okay, the greeter's doing something, the greeter's being a threat now. I don't know. I guess there's little time when it opens its mouth to it shooting its laser in the previous shots. So maybe that's completely wrong, but it's a theory anyway. So yeah, it's really interesting that the greeter now opens its mouth. Oh, and it has a tongue, by the way. That's really creepy. It looks like it has a tongue anyway. Or does it? Actually, it might just be a part of the seat, or the wheel, I mean. Like, the wheel sort of extends up, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Or maybe it's just a tongue. Why would they have tongues, though? I don't understand why they'd have tongues. It's very creepy looking either way. The way it just opens its mouth. Oh, there. And then I love the way this sort of says a bit about the game, the fire gameplay. So you can sort of see the fire is sort of made up of 3 chunks. Greeter comes along, extinguishes the chunk nearest to it, then the chunk furthest away to it, but then the medium chunk is still there. Then it goes forward and then it extinguishes it again. And that's interesting. It doesn't keep its mouth open, it closes its mouth, goes forward, opens its mouth again, and then does it. And actually, if you have a look, yeah, it's pretty much simultaneous. It starts shooting the smoke and opening its mouth. So maybe it isn't a visual element. I'm not sure. That'd be an interesting thing if it was anyway. The next shot looks like Necrom. And I noticed this yesterday. I was looking at it again yesterday and I didn't even realise this. But this is a shot where it's saying, we dare you to take on a greeter or whatever. And Abe's actually using his flamethrower at the greeter. And the greeter is just fighting back with his smoke or whatever. And I'm guessing Abe runs out of fuel or something. And then, yeah, you can see sort of the smoke is dissipating the flames. And then once the flames are gone, the greeter comes along, zap, kills Abe. Which is really interesting. Next shot shows Abe throwing some grenades at him, what are those? Maybe Soulstorm Brew. Maybe Soulstorm Brew bottles that have been like exploded, or maybe they're gas bombs. I don't know, but a gas bomb wouldn't work against the greeter, so no wonder he gets killed instantly. Is the greeter like after him? That's interesting. Okay, here's what I've noticed. I think that the laser indicates when you're in shooting range of a greeter. So like in the old games, it was like just a thing to say, okay, if you move when you're in the laser, you get dead. I think the greeters are sort of like, because if you throw a grenade at a greeter, but you're not within a laser, surely it's going to notice it and it's going to come after you. And also plus the laser stays completely at the same distance with the greeter now, from what I can tell. So it's not moving about like it was in the old game, so it's not much of a moving challenge, if that makes sense. Because as soon as Abe goes within it, zap, he's dead. So I think that the laser is sort of an indicator of how far you can get to the greeter before it can kill you, basically. So I think the purpose of the lasers has changed. It could be completely wrong, but it's an interesting theory anyway. It's also like this red ring when Abe dies. I just noticed that, which is pretty weird. And yeah, that was the final clip, so yeah, that's just a bit of an analysis. I guess there wasn't much to say about it, but it was interesting to take a closer look. As for the Glocken clip, that QR code, I tried to make it bigger, tried to expand it, whatever. But it won't detect it from what I can gather. It's too bad quality, so we'll have to wait for a higher quality version. We'll have to wait and see for the game to come out, and then we'll get it in high quality when we get to play Oddworld Soulstorm.
Hello, follow me.